I just read this, let's talk about it. Buzzkill, written by Donnie Cates and Mark Resnicek, published by the one and only Image Comics. With this video, you're gonna get a nice little review of this comic and also some lore on Comicsaurus Rex. Nice little 2-for-1 combo. In this story, our main character, Ruben, aka Francis, gets their superpowers from drinking alcohol, doing drugs, even drinking caffeine or smoking cigarettes. Each of those things gives them like a different range of power, and the more they use those substances, the higher power level they get. Ruben starts the story off in AA trying to get clean from alcohol. Unfortunately for Ruben, as he goes through this process, a lot of his enemies return, forcing him to drink so he can reclaim his powers to stop them. So essentially, he is forced to either drink to live or stay sober and die. Ruben starts AA because the last fight he had with his arch nemesis was so bad, he can't remember any of it, he was so drunk. And the villain he was fighting ended up almost dead in the hospital, along with a ton of collateral damage done to the city. So with that and his ruined relationships from his life, he decides he needs to sober up, which means he has to leave his superpowers in the past. As the story progresses, you find out that Ruben's arch nemesis was actually his dad, who passed down these powers to Ruben. His dad was, of course, like a super alcoholic, abusive dude who hated his son because his wife died during childbirth, and he puts the blame on his wife's death on his son. Ruben's dad eventually wakes up from a coma and starts to terrorize his life once again, forcing Ruben to pick up alcohol to stop him. Not feeling like he's going to be able to escape his enemies or the life he's made for himself, Ruben drinks a bottle of whiskey, fights his dad into space, throws him to Earth, and Ruben actually stays in space and dies. And that is where this 4-issue story comes to an end. Now, on the outside, this might seem like a very simple story. And I know a lot of people don't like drugs and alcohol being the feature of comics because a lot of the time, comics can be made for kids. But to me, comics are made for anyone, just like movies or books. Movies have a rating system to determine if they're for adults, teens, or kids, same way books do. But I think it's important to have stories like this because it shows you comics can resonate with a variety of different people. There's some people that might pick this story up and completely disregard it and think it's kind of hokey, but when I picked this story up and finished it, it resonated with me hard. Looking from the outside in, I think the story was pretty solid, but because of my life and the things that I've went through, it stuck with me hard. When I was 9 years old, my dad passed away from a heroin overdose. When I was a kid, my mom told me it was because he was really sick, but as I got older, I figured out the truth. But even in my 20s, I didn't realize how his afflictions could affect me until I myself started drinking. And a metaphor to the story, drinking can make you feel like you have superpowers. Maybe you're a very introverted person and it allows you to break out of your shell and talk to more people and be more social. Maybe you feel a lot of stress and anxiety from regular life, and alcohol allows you to feel like you can break free from that. For a lot of people, it makes them feel like they're a better person when they're under the influence and when they're not. And I think the story really shows that through the metaphor of having superpowers. Even looking at Ruben's relationships and him trying to become sober. In real life, you're gonna have friends and family members who are used to you drinking and not used to you trying to get sober. And some of those factors are gonna pull you in to make you feel like you need to drink to be accepted back into that life. Through the story, Ruben tries to go through the 12 steps, but events outside of his control force him back into drinking. And force is a tough word here, because he could not drink and possibly be killed by the enemies who have set him up for failure, or he could take the path that people already expect him to, start drinking just to defeat enemies that will naturally come back to fight him again. It was interesting to see his dad as the one who passed down his powers to him, when in my life, my dad's addictive personality was handed down to me. And depending on where you're at in life, you're not really sure how that's going to affect you. But this story is why I love comic books. There is a story out there for every type of person. If you've never dealt with drug or alcohol problems, either as an individual or in your family, you might skim over this book and say, this isn't for me. And that's okay. But for me, this book hit home. And it was cool to see something I've dealt with in my real life visually represented in a dope comic. I've been sober for about 2.5 years now, and I can say coaching wrestling, doing jiu-jitsu, and comic books has kept me focused on the goals ahead instead of the small things that'll make me happy in a moment, which will inevitably turn bad. I will say getting sober is one of the hardest things on the planet, so if you are struggling with any of this stuff, always reach out to people around you. They are down to help you out. It might seem like you're alone in these, but you're not. There's tons of people going through things just like you are. And more often than not, there's people around you who want to help and are willing to do whatever it takes to get you to a place where you're happy. But it is hard and you can't give up. If you've been through struggles with drugs and alcohol and you're comfortable with your sobriety, you gotta check this book out. This was a very unexpected but fantastic read.